They think I'm just a mechanic." Ethan Carter muttered under his breath as sparks danced across the fractured control panels of the drifting starship, the hull shuddering under the weight of a plasma storm raging outside. Jagged bolts of electric blue light slicing through the thickened fog of heat and metal, his hands coated in grime and oil as he adjusted a flickering console with careful precision, each movement deliberate, measured, while the alien Queen Zyraleth appeared silently at the observation deck, her violet iridescent eyes glowing softly, scanning his every motion with a mixture of disbelief and curiosity, a faint arch of her brow suggesting both amusement and intrigue. And Ethan felt the pressure of the moment tighten around his chest, like the gravitational pull of a nearby neutron star, the air crackling with tension and charged energy, and yet he did not waver, knowing that the smallest action could tip the delicate balance of life support and navigation. His fingers dancing across the controls, rerouting power, stabilizing failing systems, all while the storm outside banged against the hull with relentless fury, the sound a deafening roar that pushed him to move faster, think sharper, anticipate every shudder and flicker of the failing vessel. And Zyraleth leaned forward slightly, the reflective glow of the plasma painting her angular features in stark contrasts of light and shadow. For a moment, the intimidating aura softened, revealing a glimpse of curiosity, an alien fascination with this human who risked everything without hesitation, without boasting, just acting. And Ethan's eyes flicked to the viewport, the stars streaking by in elongated trails of light, reminding him of the scale of the universe and the fragility of their situation. Yet he pressed on, guided by an inner certainty, the quiet resilience of humanity that refused to give in to fear. The mechanical sounds of switches, valves, and conduits mingling with the distant hum of engines struggling to maintain orbit, and he could feel the pulse of the ship responding to his touch, systems coming online incrementally, the life support stabilizing, lights pulsing back into rhythm. And in that brief moment of calm, Zyraleth's gaze met his, and in it, a silent acknowledgement passed between them. The unspoken respect for competence and courage, a subtle connection forged not through words but through actions observed in the crucible of pressure and danger. Ethan straightened, wiped sweat and soot from his brow, and whispered quietly, almost reverently, "Let's see what you're made of." The challenge implicit, the tension coiling once more as the storm raged, leaving the viewer suspended on the edge of anticipation, the story just beginning to unfold. The hum of restored systems filled the starship cabin as Ethan Carter moved with precise, deliberate steps, checking every readout, every gauge, ensuring that the delicate balance of life support and navigation remained stable while the plasma storm continued its relentless assault against the hull, sending tremors and vibrations that rattled panels and flickered lights in an unpredictable rhythm. And Zyraleth watched from a short distance, her violet eyes reflecting the blue-white flashes of electricity from outside, a soft glow accentuating the sharp contours of her face, curiosity simmering beneath her composed exterior, her gaze tracking Ethan's movements with increasing attention and subtle admiration for the methodical way he worked, the calmness in the midst of chaos, the quiet authority in his hands. And Ethan, unaware of the silent evaluation, focused on rerouting power to the damaged shields, adjusting valves, calibrating sensors, each adjustment accompanied by the rhythmic click of machinery and the faint hiss of cooling vents, the metallic tang of ozone mixing with the scent of scorched panels, a sensory symphony that made every action tangible and urgent. And a sudden warning light drew his eyes to the main console, prompting a swift calculation and a shift in priorities, rerouting auxiliary systems to maintain equilibrium. And Zyraleth leaned closer, intrigued by the precision and intent that seemed to emanate from the human, noting the absence of hesitation, the lack of panic, the way he absorbed the storm rather than being consumed by it. And she stepped slightly closer, a tentative recognition that this human, fragile in appearance yet formidable in practice, carried a strength that was not measured in firepower but in resilience, in ingenuity, in the ability to act decisively when the environment demanded it. And Ethan adjusted a panel with deft fingers, sweat beading along his forehead as he aligned conduits, re-established communications, and monitored energy flow. the storm outside casting erratic shadows across the cabin, highlighting both the exhaustion and determination etched into his face, while Zyroletha's attention remained fixed, noticing the subtle shifts of expression, the micro-adjustments of posture, the understated confidence of a human fully engaged with the machinery around him. And in that moment of silent observation, the unspoken understanding began to form, bridging the distance between species, a mutual recognition that actions, not titles or appearances, defined capability. And as Ethan finished stabilizing the last failing system, he allowed himself a brief exhale, a quiet acknowledgement of temporary success, and Zyroletha's eyes softened imperceptibly, a flicker of respect mingling with lingering skepticism, the storm outside continuing to rage, but inside, a fragile calm had settled, and both stood in measured anticipation, aware that the next challenge could arrive at any moment, yet bound by the unspoken acknowledgement of competence, courage, and the subtle beginning of trust. The air in the starship cabin was thick with the hum of restored systems, punctuated by the soft flicker of emergency lights, as Ethan Carter moved deliberately through the narrow corridors, recalibrating sensors and aligning conduits with meticulous care, each movement precise, guided by a steady pulse of focus, while Zyroleth followed at a measured distance, her luminescent violet eyes tracing his actions. The glow of the plasma storm outside casting shifting patterns of light and shadow across her angular features, and she noticed the way his fingers worked deftly across the control panels, the subtle adjustments that balanced the ship between stability and chaos, a silent testament to his knowledge and resilience. And Ethan paused at the main control hub, listening to the faint mechanical hum of the engines, feeling the vibrations in the floor beneath his boots, sensing the energy flow through the circuits, the way the ship responded to his touch with gradual certainty. And Zyroleth stepped slightly closer, the weight of her curiosity drawing her in, the alien patterns of her iridescent skin catching the ambient light, highlighting the contours of her face as she leaned in to observe more closely. And for a moment, the storm outside seemed to fade into the background, leaving only the shared focus of two beings connected through observation and action, a bridge forming not through words but through competence and calm under pressure. And Ethan adjusted a conduit with deliberate care, rerouting energy to maintain balance, his eyes flicking to each readout, interpreting data with practiced precision, the soft hiss of the cooling vents punctuating the rhythm of his work, while Zyroletha's attention never wavered, the intensity in her gaze slowly transforming from skepticism to recognition, a quiet acknowledgement of skill, of human tenacity, and the shared silence deepened, charged with unspoken understanding. As Ethan finished the final alignment, the lights steadying, the hum of systems smoothing into a consistent cadence, and he straightened, shoulders tense but resolved, wiping a bead of sweat from his brow, while Zyroletha's expression softened imperceptibly, the faintest curve of her lips hinting at approval, and both paused, the ambient glow reflecting off the metallic surfaces, the ship no longer trembling as violently under the storm. And in that suspended moment, a subtle shift occurred, a quiet connection formed, an acknowledgement that actions, guided by integrity and focus, had spoken louder than any declaration, and the two stood together, separate yet linked by circumstance and observation. The storm outside continuing its chaotic dance, but inside, a fragile calm had been achieved, anticipation hanging in the air, a shared breath before the next challenge emerged. Ethan Carter moved with quiet determination through the softly illuminated corridors of the starship, the hum of restored systems a steady undercurrent beneath his focused movements, while Zyroleth followed with deliberate grace, her violet iridescent eyes catching the light from flickering panels, reflecting curiosity tempered by caution. And as Ethan paused to adjust a misaligned sensor, he felt the subtle pull of the ship beneath his boots, the gentle vibration a reminder of the storm still raging outside, though dampened now by the stabilized shields. And Zyroleth leaned forward slightly, her attention fixed on his actions, the smooth contours of her features bathed in the ambient glow, an unspoken fascination evident in her gaze. And Ethan's hands worked methodically, connecting circuits, tightening connections, rerouting power, each movement precise and calm, as though he could feel the heartbeat of the vessel itself, sensing the ebb and flow of energy and responding intuitively, while the sounds of machinery, the soft hiss of ventilation, and the faint crackle of the storm beyond created a rhythmic symphony that matched the cadence of his thoughts, and Zyraleth shifted her weight, tilting her head subtly, the light catching the shimmer of her alien skin, noting the quiet confidence and focus that radiated from him, the resilience that came not from strength or aggression but from knowledge, awareness, and calm decisiveness. And Ethan adjusted a secondary conduit, watching the readout stabilize, feeling a sense of controlled triumph as the systems settled into harmony. And the storm outside painted patterns of moving shadows across the cabin, the contrast of light and dark emphasizing the precision of each gesture, the small but meaningful adjustments that made the difference between chaos and order. And Zyraleth's eyes lingered on his movements, registering the subtle mastery of his work, the way he seemed to anticipate the response of the ship as if he could hear it breathe. And in that silent observation, an understanding began to emerge, bridging the gap between their worlds, showing that capability was defined by action, observation, and care rather than appearance or title. And as Ethan stepped back, scanning the cabin for any further anomalies, he allowed a brief moment of reflection, acknowledging the temporary equilibrium he had created, while Zyraleth's expression softened ever so slightly, the faintest hint of approval and recognition passing over her face. And together they remained in measured silence, each aware of the other's presence and competence, the storm outside still thrumming but no longer threatening immediate collapse, anticipation hanging in the air, an unspoken agreement that the next challenge would test them again. Yet for now, the fragile trust between human and alien had begun to take root, a quiet testament to observation, action, and mutual respect. Ethan Carter moved carefully through the control hub, the soft hum of restored systems creating a steady backdrop against the occasional flicker of emergency lights, while Zyraleth followed a few steps behind, her violet eyes reflecting the ambient glow and tracking each precise movement he made, noting the deliberate way he aligned sensors and adjusted power conduits, every motion purposeful and methodical, conveying competence without the need for words. And Ethan paused at a central console, scanning the readouts, the subtle vibrations of the ship under his boots a constant reminder of the storm still pressing against the hull. Yet he navigated the challenges with steady focus, rerouting energy, calibrating instruments, and checking communication channels, each action reinforcing the stability of the vessel, while Zyraleth's attention remained fixed, her gaze registering the quiet authority and adaptability inherent in his approach, a curiosity mingled with respect growing in her expression. And Ethan moved to a nearby panel, the tactile feedback from switches and dials grounding him in the reality of the machinery, the hiss of air circulation and the gentle clatter of components filling the space around them. The storm outside a chaotic contrast to the controlled environment he maintained within, and Zyraleth took a step closer, her posture open yet cautious, observing the seamless coordination of thought and action, the way he seemed to anticipate the behavior of each system, and a subtle acknowledgement passed between them, an unspoken recognition that skill and dedication could transcend differences of species, appearance, and origin. And Ethan's fingers worked deftly across a conduit, rerouting energy to compensate for a minor fluctuation, the soft glow of the displays highlighting the concentration etched into his features, while Zyraleth noted the absence of hesitation, the calm decisiveness, and the resilience that came not from force but from understanding, awareness, and patience. And as he finished the final adjustment, the cabin lights stabilized, consoles hummed in harmonious rhythm, and the ship itself seemed to exhale a sigh of relief, the storm outside continuing its relentless dance, yet contained within the boundaries Ethan had carefully reinforced. And Zyraleth's expression softened further, a trace of wonder flickering across her features, the first real hint of connection forming as she recognized the subtle strength of his humanity. And they stood side by side, separated by space, but united in the silent acknowledgement of competence, courage, and mutual respect, the anticipation of what would come next suspended in the charged atmosphere, a fragile trust now established as they prepared for the challenges yet to arrive. Ethan Carter continued through the dimly lit corridors, each step measured and deliberate, his eyes scanning the soft glow of monitors and panels for any anomalies, the faint hum of the ship's systems a constant presence beneath the rhythm of his movements. While Zyraleth followed, her violet iridescent eyes reflecting the interplay of emergency lights and the residual flashes from the plasma storm outside. Observing the meticulous way he adjusted conduits, monitored energy flow, and ensured the stability of each subsystem, and Ethan paused at a junction where several panels intersected, methodically verifying connections and recalibrating instruments, his hands steady, precise, the subtle hiss of ventilation and soft mechanical clicks accentuating the quiet intensity of his focus, and Zyraleth leaned slightly forward, drawn in by the controlled competence. The way his actions spoke louder than words, conveying calm authority and resilience in the midst of a chaotic environment, and Ethan rerouted a secondary energy line, noting the minute fluctuations in the readouts and responding instantly to maintain balance. The soft glow of the displays illuminating the concentration etched across his face, while the shadows cast by flickering lights danced across the walls, highlighting the silent dialogue unfolding between human and alien. An unspoken recognition of skill, focus, and determination, and Zyraleth's expression shifted subtly. The initial skepticism giving way to quiet intrigue, an acknowledgement that capability transcended species and form, and Ethan adjusted the final conduit, watching as systems hummed smoothly in harmony, the storm outside still pressing against the hull, but contained through his careful measures, and for a brief moment, the cabin was filled with a sense of equilibrium. The soft pulse of energy and controlled mechanical sounds creating a rhythm that spoke to order restored, and Zyraleth's gaze lingered on his movements, noting the integration of thought and action, the way he seemed to anticipate the response of the ship itself, a quiet fascination taking root as she observed the subtle mastery of human ingenuity and calm decisiveness, and Ethan straightened, shoulders tense but resolute, wiping a bead of sweat from his brow, while Zyraleth's features softened imperceptibly, a silent recognition forming, the beginning of trust and understanding bridging their differences, and together they remained in the cabin, side by side yet separate, linked through observation, action, and the shared acknowledgement that competence, courage, and quiet determination could create a fragile harmony even amidst a storm that threatened to overwhelm. Anticipation of future challenges lingering in the charged air, the unspoken connection between them deepening as the ship settled into its newly stabilized rhythm. Ethan Carter stood at the central hub, the soft vibration of the ship beneath his boots a steady reminder of the storm beyond, and he scanned the array of monitors, the soft glow illuminating the determination etched across his face, while Zyraleth observed him closely, her violet, iridescent eyes reflecting the ambient light, a subtle shift of intrigue in her expression as she noted the fluidity and precision of his movements, and Ethan moved to the adjacent panel, carefully rerouting power to the auxiliary systems, the soft hiss of air vents and the faint hum of machinery forming a rhythm that matched the measured cadence of his thoughts, each adjustment deliberate, controlled, and responsive to the fluctuating energy levels, while Zyraleth stepped slightly closer, drawn by the unspoken mastery he displayed. The way his hands worked with quiet authority, not hurried but confident, guided by understanding rather than force, and Ethan paused, sensing a minor imbalance in the energy flow, and with a few precise calibrations, he restored stability, the lights across the hub stabilizing in a smooth pulse, casting warm reflections on the metallic surfaces, and Zyraleth's gaze lingered, registering the combination of attentiveness, patience, and problem-solving that distinguished his approach, an appreciation growing silently, acknowledging that competence and courage could manifest in subtle ways beyond appearance or status, and Ethan adjusted a secondary conduit, noting the interplay of currents and monitoring the feedback from sensors, the subtle vibrations underfoot communicating information he absorbed instinctively, while the storm outside continued to pulse against the hull with distant echoes and flashes of light, contained yet ever present. And Zyraleth's expression softened further, the slightest lift of her brow suggesting recognition and curiosity as she noted the way he navigated both the systems and the pressure of the moment with balanced composure. And Ethan moved back to the central console, verifying connections, ensuring redundancy in critical channels. And as he completed the sequence, the entire hub seemed to settle. A rhythm emerging in the hum of the ship, a temporary equilibrium achieved through focus, foresight, and deliberate action. And Zyraleth inclined her head slightly, a silent acknowledgement passing between them, the fragile connection of respect and understanding deepening in the quiet of shared observation. The storm outside still asserting its presence but no longer threatening immediate disruption, and for a moment, both stood in stillness, separated by space but linked by trust in action and competence, the charged atmosphere holding the promise of revelation, and the anticipation of what would come next hung in the air, a subtle tension braided with mutual acknowledgement that each had observed and understood the other, setting the stage for the next test of resilience and adaptability. Ethan Carter paused at the observation deck, the faint vibration of the starship beneath his boots resonating with each careful step, while the storm outside cast an unsteady glow of plasma across the cabin, illuminating the contours of his focused face and the subtle determination in his movements. And Zyraleth stepped closer, her violet iridescent eyes catching the light, revealing a flicker of unguarded curiosity as she observed the precise way he adjusted instruments, rerouted energy flows, and verified system integrity with calm attention, each motion deliberate, exact, a testament to human resilience and methodical thought. And Ethan reached a central panel, aligning a series of conduits, monitoring sensors, and making minute corrections to stabilize auxiliary systems, the soft hiss of air circulation and the rhythmic hum of machinery creating a cadence that matched the quiet intensity of his focus. While Zyraleth's gaze remained fixed, the slight incline of her head suggesting a growing respect, an acknowledgement that skill and patience could forge solutions in moments of uncertainty. And Ethan stepped back, scanning the displays, noting the subtle equilibrium achieved, the gentle pulsing of restored systems reflecting controlled energy and stability. And Zyraleth allowed herself a small breath, the first acknowledgement of admiration she had permitted, as the balance between human and ship resonated outward, a silent testament to competence, courage, and calm. Decisiveness. And Ethan moved to another panel, making precise adjustments that further harmonized the energy networks, ensuring that the systems responded predictably and efficiently to the residual effects of the storm. And Zyraleth observed the seamless coordination of thought and action, noting the interplay of understanding, foresight, and quiet confidence, a connection forming not through words but through the shared awareness of the environment and the careful orchestration of complex mechanisms. And as Ethan completed the final alignment, the cabin seemed to exhale, lights steady, hums regular, the storm outside now a distant, contained presence, and Zyraleth's expression softened completely, a faint smile of recognition and intrigue appearing as she considered the human beside her, the subtle strength and competence that had revealed itself through sustained action and focus. And for a long moment, they both stood in silence, the charged atmosphere carrying anticipation and the acknowledgement that a bridge of trust and understanding had been quietly built between them. The promise of revelation and the next step in their shared journey lingering in the calm after the storm. Ethan Carter stood at the observation deck, the soft hum of the fully stabilized starship resonating through the floor beneath his boots, while Zyraleth's violet iridescent eyes reflected the ambient glow of panels and the fading streaks of plasma from the distant storm outside, and she regarded him with a mixture of curiosity and subtle reverence. The quiet intensity of his focus and the calm decisiveness in every movement having revealed a depth of capability she had not anticipated. And Ethan moved to the main console, checking systems one final time, his fingers dancing across switches and dials with practiced precision, monitoring energy flow, verifying sensor accuracy, and adjusting minor imbalances, each motion deliberate and controlled, a manifestation of careful thought and quiet resilience. While Zyraleth observed without interruption, the soft shifting of her stance and the tilt of her head conveying growing recognition of his skill and character. And as he completed the final adjustments, The cabin lights steadied. The hum of machinery reached a harmonious cadence, and the storm outside became a distant echo, no longer an immediate threat, but a reminder of the larger forces beyond the hull. And Ethan turned slightly to acknowledge Zyroleth, his gaze steady, conveying without words the competence, patience, and steadfastness that had carried them through the crisis, and she allowed herself a subtle gesture, a nod that indicated the beginning of trust, understanding, and a new perception of humanity, the combination of action, awareness, and integrity manifest in a single figure capable of altering her expectations and perceptions. And in that suspended moment, both looked out at the vast expanse of stars beyond the viewport, the scattered points of light mirrored in Zyroleth's eyes, shimmering as if reflecting the realization that human determination and insight could resonate even across the gulf of species and experience. And Ethan's posture remained calm, shoulders squared, hands resting lightly on the console, embodying quiet confidence and resilience. While Zyroleth's expression held a mixture of contemplation and acknowledgement, the faintest hint of a smile playing across her features, and the two stood in shared silence, separated physically, yet connected through understanding, observation, and the unspoken recognition that capability, patience, and morality had bridged worlds, the storm now a memory, the ship steady, and the stars outside mirrored the promise of what could come next, leaving an open horizon filled with anticipation, reflection, and the emotional resonance of mutual respect and revelation.